Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today it's Faith Fashion. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to go about the making of this dress. So if this is something you're interested in, keep on watching, and if you're still here to subscribe to the channel, please hit on the subscribe button and turn on notification bell to get notified when I post more video. Alright, let's get started. I'm gonna head to draw out my basic lines, which is from my shoulder to chest line, shoulder to bust point, shoulder to under bust point, and also shoulder to my waist line, just as you've seen me done here. And I'll move ahead now to draft out my shoulder. My shoulder is actually 15 and I'm actually marking 7.5 inch there. And after doing that, I'll go ahead to take the round neck measurement. I've gone ahead to mark at 3.5 inches and what I have remaining is 4. And for the depth of my neck, I'll go down by 2.5 inches. Can decide to come down by 3 inches. This is just what I actually prefer. I actually came down by 2.5 inches and I'll just go ahead to connect the lines. Promise me guys, my camera was a bit shaky here. I did not quickly observe it, so please just bear with me. So after doing that, on my shoulder, I'll come down by 1 inch just as you've seen me marked here. Just the basic way of drafting a basic bodice. And after doing that, I'll go ahead to connect it to meet my neck area just as you've seen me done here. And so from that 1 inch I came down by, I'm going to come down by 8 inches, which is going to serve as my armhole, which is going to actually be my new chest line. So I'll just go ahead to mark the straight line there, which is going to serve as my new chest line. So the next thing I'll go ahead to do is to take my nipple to nipple measurements, which is actually what I'm marking here on my waistline, on my under bust line, and also on the bust points. My nipple to nipple is actually 4 inches, so that's what I've gone ahead to mark. Moving ahead, I'll go ahead to take half an inch in and also half an inch on the other side, just as you've seen me done here. And I'll go ahead to take my ruler and then go ahead to connect to meet the bust point. So this particular dress has a dart on the armhole, so that's what we're going to be marking out next. So what I'll do now is to, from this point that I came down by 1 inch, I'm going to mark 6 inches just as you've seen me done here. I've already marked out 6 inches guys. So what I'll do now is to go in by 1 inch. So just go ahead and mark out 1 inch in just as you've seen me done. So after doing that, I'll go ahead now to take my curve ruler and then connect to meet the shoulder line that I came down by 1 inch. So just what should I do and you understand. So I just go ahead to take my curve ruler now and then connect to meet my shoulder line. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to mark out my nipple to nipple on the chest line just as you see me done here. So I've gone ahead to mark out that point there. So I'll just go ahead from that point I came in by 1 inch. I'll go ahead to connect it to meet my nipple to nipple at the chest line there. So that's what I've gone ahead to do. So from this particular point here, I'll come down by half an inch just as you see me done here. Just come down by half an inch and I've gone ahead to mark it out, and I'll go in also by half an inch. So I came down by half an inch and I'm going in by half an inch as well. So just go ahead to mark out half an inch on the side there just as you see me done. And what I'll do next now is to connect that line to meet that same point on my chest line. So I'll go ahead now to take the measurement on both lines to be sure that they are exactly the same length. So I have 3.5 inches on one side and 3.5 inches on both sides. That's actually to show that I'm actually correct. So before I connect my armhole, I'll just go ahead now to take my basic measurements. I'll go ahead now to take my basic measurements for my bust point. My bust point is actually 9. I'll go ahead to add 1.5 inch for seam allowance, and I'll just go ahead also to mark it out. On my under bust points, I have 7.5 inches. I'll just go ahead also to add that half inch just as you see me measured there. I'll go ahead to add it to the under bust points, and I'll also go ahead to add my 1.5 inch for seam allowance, and I'll move on to the waistline as well. I'll go ahead to mark out my waist divided by 4, which is 7, and I'll go ahead to add 1 inch that I've taken out, and also my 1.5 inch for seam allowance. And after doing that, I'll just go ahead to connect with my ruler. So I'll go ahead now to take my curve ruler to make a new armhole just as you've seen me done here. So I'll just go ahead to create my armhole here to meet the chest line. So guys, I was not really paying much attention here. You can see that I'm supposed to mark it to meet the 1.5 inch I marked for my seam allowance, but I just got so my attention was actually divided at this point, so that's actually marked it at that point. So I actually went ahead later to correct it before drafting it on my fabric. So we're actually done drafting our front piece, but before I go ahead to cut, I'll go ahead now to just um join the dart on the armhole together, and then go ahead to connect it with my pencil to be sure I have a proper measurement at that point. So just go ahead to join your dart at the armhole, and then go ahead to just take your pencil to connect it to meet the armhole, just as you see me done here. So before cutting, I'll go ahead to place my paper tape, and then just go ahead to use it and tape that place down before I go ahead to cut it. So for the back, I've gone ahead to take out 1.5 inch for my zip allowance, and I'll just go ahead to place my front, and then go ahead to trace out the chest line, the bust points, the waist, and also um my basic measurements. So I'll just go ahead to trace it now so I can have my pattern for my back. So after doing that, I'll mark out my bust points, my waist, and my shoulder, and just go ahead to take my curve ruler, and then go ahead to actually cover my armhole area just as you've seen me done here. For the round neck for the back, I'll go ahead to take 1.5 inch for my depth for the back, and I'll just go ahead to take my curve ruler and then go ahead to connect all lines. I also go ahead now to take out my dart measurement for the back piece. So I've just gone ahead to take out 0.5 inch on both sides, and then go ahead to connect. So I'll go ahead now to extend my line, and after doing that, I'll go ahead to take out 0.5 inch, and then go ahead to take my ruler and then meet the zip allowance just as you see me done here, guys. So I also come up by 0.5 inch, and then go ahead to connect to meet the waistline. So this is actually the point I'll be taking out, so just take notes, guys. And after doing that, I'll go ahead to cut. So after doing that, we move on now to work on the skirt part. So we're going to be using one particular pattern to draft both the front and the back. So right now, what I'm going ahead to do, I'm going ahead to just mark out 2 inches on the side there. So just go ahead to mark out 2 inches, and after doing that, I'll go ahead to take my rule and then just mark the lines to meet each other. And what I'll do next is to fold it in. That 2 inches I'm actually marking right now, I'll go ahead to fold it in. So just watch what I'm going to do. So after just marking out the lines like this, so what I'll do next is to fold it in like this, because I'm going to be using this same pattern to draft the front and also for the back. So this is what I actually did, and after doing that, just go ahead to turn it sideways to meet the other side. So this is it, guys. So just watch what I did carefully. If you don't understand, you can actually take the video back. So after doing that, now I'll go ahead to take my waist measurement to the hip measurement. So I'm just going ahead to check if it's actually correct. So what I did here, I took out my half inch, which is 15 inches, to meet my hip measurements. My hip measurements from my shoulder to hip measurement is 23, so it's actually correct here. So after doing that, I'll go ahead also to take my shoulder to the length of my skirt. So I'm just trying to make sure that everything is on point, guys. So after doing that, now I move on to take the length of my skirt, which is I'm actually doing right now. So I actually found that I had excess remaining, so just had to like attach extra paper to it, so I would be sure I'm actually correct. So I just go ahead to attach extra pattern paper to the one I have before. So my length is actually 42, but I found out that it was actually the first pattern paper I had was actually 38. So I just had to add extra pattern paper to it. So I'll go ahead now to mark out my waist to hip measurement and also the length of my gown. So I'll just go ahead to mark it there, and I actually left 2 inches, which is going to be for my seam allowance to actually fold it in. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to just mark out the lines just as you've seen me done. So I just had to wipe off that part because I'm not going to be working with that part for now. This is the part I'm going to be working with, which is where I've marked my hip, my waist, and also the length. So I found out I'll be needing my knee area, so I just went ahead to mark it off camera. So after doing that, now I'll go ahead to take my nipple to nipple, which is 4 inches. So it's going to serve as my dart allowance. So I'll go ahead now to mark out 4 inches, like just like I did for the top part, and I'll go ahead to mark it on my hip line as well. So after doing that, I'll take my rule and then connect each lines to meet each other. So just like I did for the top part, I'm going to take out half an inch on both sides, just as you see me done here, and I'll take my rule to connect and meet the hip line. I'll move ahead now to take my basic measurement for my waist, which is 7 inches. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to mark it out and then add 1 inch for the darts. And after adding 1 inch, I'll go ahead also, like I did for the top part, add 1.5 inch for my side allowance. So for the hip, guys, we're going to be doing the hip allocation method here. So my hip is actually 9 after dividing by 4 actually. So what I'll go ahead now to do, I'll take out half an inch. So instead of marking, I'm going to mark out 8.5 inch, but you can go ahead to minus 1 inch if you want. It's actually for a smaller size. That's why I actually took out half inch. So whatever I have for my hip area, I'll go ahead to minus 1 inch and then mark it on the length of my skirt. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to just connect. So we're actually done marking out our front part, and I've gone ahead to take my marker to mark it out. So I'll just go ahead to identify this part as my front. So after doing that, guys, what I'll do next now is to work on the back measurements. Remember the part we folded in by 2 inches, just go ahead and open it up just as you've seen me done here. So we'll be working on the back pattern now. Remember, guys, the back is actually a little bit slant. So what I'll do next is to take out half inch on the waist area and then move ahead to the hip area to take out half an inch also at this point. You can go ahead to use 1 inch if you are a plus size. So I just decided to use half an inch because I'm a smaller size. So after doing that, from that hip area, I'll come down by 6 inches if you are not that tall, but for me I just came down by 6 inches. So if you're a tall person, you can come down by 7 or 8 inches. So after doing that, I'll just go ahead to connect all the lines to meet each other. So the next thing I'll go ahead to do now is to take out my zip allowance. I'm going to be using 1.5 inch for zip allowance. So that's what I'm just going ahead to mark out at this particular point. So just go ahead to do the same thing here. 1.5 inch, or you can decide to use 2 inches. It's actually optional. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to fold in the back piece. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to take um half inch on this area, which is going to serve for our new front piece. So just go ahead to mark out half inch there. So if you actually came out by 1 inch on the back, so just go ahead to also mark out 1 inch. So we actually done drafting out the front and the back piece on the same pattern paper. So I'll go ahead now to just cut out the front piece. So this is the part we'll be using for our front piece. But when you want to go ahead to cut on your fabric, you go ahead to just open it up, and then you have your back piece. So guys, this is the fabric we'll be using for our tutorial. So it's actually a chinos material, not a crepe material, and it's a little bit stretchy. So guys, I've placed the half piece on my fabric. Remember the part I actually cut out. I've gone ahead to use a piece of paper to join it back. So after doing that, I'll just go ahead to cut. So after cutting, what I'll go ahead now is to notch out my armhole that's on the fabric. So that's what I'm just going ahead to do here, guys. So this is the half cut for our back piece. Before I go ahead to cut it out, I'll just go ahead also to attach my 1.5 inch for seam allowance there, which I actually forgot to add when I was cutting the pattern. So for the back piece, guys, I'm going to be taking out my dart area. I'm not going to be sewing it on the fabric, right? I'm going to be taking it out on the pattern paper and then go ahead to just cut it directly on my fabric. So that's what I've gone ahead to do here. So guys, just as you've seen me done here, I've gone ahead to take out my dart on the front piece of my skirt before cutting it out on my fabric. So after cutting for the front, I'll go ahead now to open it up just as you've seen me done here and cut out for the back piece. So before I go ahead to do that, I'll go ahead to remove that half inch I actually added for the front. And after doing that, I'll open up the zip area just as you see me done here, the zip allowance, guys, and then go ahead to pin it to my fabric to make sure it does not move while I'm cutting. And after doing that, I'll just go ahead to cut. So now guys, we're going to be working on the design we have at the top part. So I'm just going ahead to trace out my lines for the front piece, and after doing that, I'll go ahead to open it up just as you've seen me done here. After marking out the lines, I'll go ahead to place it on a new pattern paper just as you've seen me done here. I've gone ahead to place the half piece on a new pattern paper. So after doing that, the next thing we'll do is from this particular point, so just watch carefully. From this particular point, I'll go ahead to mark 1.5 inch in, and then on the armhole area, I'll go ahead to mark 1 inch in as well. So after doing that, I'll move to the bust point, and from that bust point, I'll come down by 1 inch. And after coming down by 1 inch, I'll just take my curve ruler and then go ahead to connect to meet my 1 inch and also 1.5 inch. I've gone ahead to mark. So just watch what I do, guys, and you will understand what I'm trying to explain. So the 1.5 inch I came in by from the neck area, I'll go ahead to just take my pencil and then make a curve to meet that 1.5 inch. So the next thing we're going to move ahead to do is to extend the line from that shoulder point there. So what I'll do now is to take my ruler and then extend the line. So I'll just go ahead to extend it by 30 inches or 40 inches. Depends on how long you want it to be at the back for the design you're currently seeing on your screen. So I'll just go ahead to extend the line by 30 or 40 inches depending on how tall. So just go ahead to mark the length of your band from your shoulder to the point you'd want it to meet at the back. So after doing that, go ahead to take the measurement. So after marking the desired length, I'll go ahead to trace it out on this new pattern paper. So just watch what I do and you understand. I've gone ahead to do that, guys. So what I'll do next is just to mark out 1/2 inch for my sewing allowance. So that's what I actually went ahead to do round this down part. And after doing that, I'll go ahead to connect all lines to meet. So we're actually done, guys. I'll just go ahead to cut now. So after doing that, I'll go ahead now to cut on my fabric, and that is basically all. So I found that my band wasn't long enough, so I just went ahead to attach new pattern paper and then extend the line. So we're actually done drafting, guys. I'll bring my front pattern so you guys can see how it's going to look after sewing. So this is how it's going to look for the design at the front. So this is how it's going to look, guys. So if you want to see the sewing tutorial, just comment on the comment section and I'll make sure that it's available in few days time. So guys, this is actually the point it's going to start from. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, subscribe and hit on the notification bell to get notified when I post the sewing tutorial. Alright guys, until my next video, bye.